I know we're basically at the end of the second day, so I'm sure all of you are feeling a little bit tired. So I'm going to make all of you stand up, and we're going to play for chocolate really quickly.
All right.
All right? So everyone stand up. The game is called Heads or Tails. It's really simple. We do it based on a coin flip. You pick either heads or tails. I flip the coin. If you don't have it right, then you sit down. And then we just see who is the last person standing, and they get this very exclusive Prague-based chocolate. I couldn't find anything more Prague-based, so. All right, everyone clear? Pick heads or tails? Oh, lots of heads, okay. Get to see how bad I am at flipping a coin, too. That is tails, so anyone with heads, sit down. Ooh. All right, heads or tails? Tails again, interesting.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Tails again, my goodness. Is this a loaded coin you gave me?
I have no comment about the coin.
Don't gamble with Brian. All right, maybe I'll actually just flip it better. Tails again. We are beating the odds here. All right, change? Anyone changing? No? Tails. And heads. Finally. Are you the last one? Hey, come on up here. All right, thank you guys for playing along. It's one of my favorite things to do at a conference. Enjoy. So yes, my name is Sarah, and I was formerly Director of Support at Kayako, which is a help desk software. But yes, as Brian mentioned, I am now freelance, yay. Freelance content writer, but most of this is based on my experience working in support. So I don't know if you recognize this layout, but it's actually the office. it's a layout from the Office TV show. But I feel like, I've been to a couple Write the Docs conferences now, and I feel like a lot of the time, technical writers and support sit on opposite sides of the office. This wasn't my experience at all when I came here. I've always worked with a technical writer actually inside the support team, and so hearing other people's experiences of working more closely with development or product really was surprising to me. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how we work better with support and technical writing together at our company. One of the reasons why I think this works out so well is that technical writing and support really have the same goal in mind. We want to help the user do the thing. Whatever that thing is, whatever your user is, we want to help them get to their end goal easily. And so it makes sense to work together. Technical writing plus support just equals superpowers. There's a few reasons for this. First of all, it's the perfect feedback cycle. You put a doc out there into the world, and then what happens? Usually users read it, and if they read it and they still don't have their answer, they're going to come back to support. And so support can help you understand where those docs are going wrong, where maybe they're unclear, maybe there's not documentation for a specific use case. This feedback cycle is such a naturally occurring thing in the business, but a lot of people don't take it into account. How many people wish they could talk to their users more often? Anybody? Yeah. Support literally does it 40 hours a week. That's our only job. All we do is talk to customers. We talk to them on the phone, we talk to them through email, through chat, and we have a lot of information that we can give you about your users. We also speak the same language as your users or your customers. So while you might have written documentation based on what the product team named something or what marketing named something, that isn't always the way that your users are speaking about it. Whereas your support team has talked to customers in support tickets, and they know exactly how customers are talking about their problem, how they're discussing features. One really interesting thing that we came upon with our support team is that we've got a search icon. And somebody wrote in as a customer, and they said, the monocle isn't working for me. We're like, the what? What are you looking for? And it's actually, I think it's a relic from Yelp. Yelp uses a search monocle. But this customer was trying to use search and talking about a monocle. And this is something that we would never have figured out or put in our docs or changed that UI to make it a little bit more sensical for both the people writing about the product and the people using the product if we hadn't had that close collaboration between technical writing and support. And what I'm going to focus most on is how much data your support team has about conversations with their customers. We have so many ongoing conversations. We tag all of them. Most of your support teams probably use some sort of help desk that categorizes these tickets. You can see what day of the week you get more support tickets. You can see what product more of your support tickets are about. And all of this data is really, really helpful to technical writers to get better at their job. So a little bit more about me. Again, former director of support at Kayako. I work with a team of 30 support agents. We're quite global. We've got remote workers in the US and Poland and the UK, and a lot of our team is in India. And we've got one amazing technical writer who I found and got connected through Write the Docs. And I know I'm kind of known at this conference as the girl who works with Kelly O'Brien, but she's great. She works really closely with the Portland conference. And finally, I love traveling. If you need an intro to come talk to me about traveling. It's one of my favorite things to do. But hopefully, I've worked with support as a team lead and as a director and a manager for several years, mostly on online support, so that's mostly where my experience is coming from with this. And the question I want to help you answer is, how effective is your documentation? Riona talked a lot about this earlier, and I have similar ideas, just coming from a little bit of a different experience background. So some of the things you might answer this question with, if somebody asked you how effective your documentation was, well, views are going up. More people are reading it. That doesn't mean it's actually helpful. That just means you've got more eyes on it. Lots of people have clicked that little helpful button at the bottom. Again, if you don't have a ratio or if you don't have any baseline for that, again, it's not answering the question of how effective your documentation is. And I think more often than not, it's actually, well, nobody's told me it's wrong. Nobody's pointed out any mistakes in it. So I guess it's okay. I guess we can leave it up there. And we're kind of left guessing on whether users are actually finding our documentation helpful and whether it's helping them accomplish the thing that we are setting out to do. So how can support help you answer this question? Basically, you want to layer the data that you already have. So any documentation data that you have, those structural quality markers that Riona talked about with page, the number of views, the amount of engagement that you have on your page, whatever else that you're measuring with your documentation. If you layer that with support data, you can actually track very interesting user journeys through your user assistants, giving you gold money. So there's 4 strategies that I kind of want to talk about. Self-service ratio, customer effort score, tagging tickets, and qualitative data. I'll go into those in a little bit more detail. So strategy number 1 is to measure your self-service ratio. And ratios are my favorite type of data because they, by definition, compare one thing against each other, so they're a little bit more trendable. Really quick point, what is self-service? Self-service is any tool that allows users to help themselves. So whether that's an interactive help guide, whether that's a user guide or an article or a resource page, whatever that is, that's self-service. Or one of these self-service begging machines at the grocery store. So how you calculate your self-service ratio, you divide the number of article views or self-service tool views by the number of tickets created. So if really easy on Google Analytics if you're hosting your docs online, number of views divided by the number of tickets, and then you get a ratio of 9:1 in this case. And the reason why this is really helpful is that if your documentation is useful, you should be helping the ticket number to go down. So fewer people should be contacting you. And this balances out that view ratio, or that number of views that I was talking about before, because if lots of people are viewing it, but then you're still getting tons and tons of tickets, your documentation isn't helpful, it's just getting in the way of people getting to support. So hopefully, as your documentation gets more helpful, your ratio increases. Better documentation means fewer support conversations. The Zendesk has benchmarked this for online businesses at about 12 views for one support contact. So if you're around that area, you're doing okay, that's about average, and then if you're any higher, that's pretty good. Second strategy is customer effort score. Has anyone heard of customer effort score before? One person, well done. I don't have any more chocolate. But customer effort score is a fairly new metric that customer support teams are starting to track. And basically, it comes from the CEB did a study saying that if customers have high effort experiences, they're 96% less likely to stay loyal to your company, which is a huge difference. High effort experiences are those ones, everyone's had that experience with support before. You call, they don't know who you are, they tell you to email somebody else, they transfer you, you're repeating your question 5 different times. Maybe you're looking through a website and you can't even find the number or find the email address for support. You just can't get help. Really high effort, sticky support problems. And the way that you measure this is after support interaction, and that's key. After a support ticket is resolved, you send out this survey and you basically ask, the company made it easy for me to handle my issue. And it's on a scale of 1 to 7, either strongly disagree or strongly agree. And instead of averaging it out as a number or a percentage, what's actually important about this is the distribution. So this chunk of customers all found it very difficult to get support, found it difficult to deal with their issue. These are the ones that you're going to want to talk to your support team about and say, why are we passing people around? Why are we making it difficult for them to get help? The medium effort is kind of actually where you want to keep people. You want to make it a medium amount of effort for people to get their issue resolved. It might sound counterintuitive, because ideally, like in your head, you're thinking, well, I want to make it as easy as possible. But that's actually not a very feasible solution for the business. Because if everything is low effort, your customer is just going to pick up the phone and call you every time they have a problem. It's going to be expensive, your support team is going to be overwhelmed, and your customers are going to feel like they have to call you for everything, which isn't what anyone wants. They want to be able to help themselves. So if it was too easy, it actually should have been a self-service experience. So if you're seeing this distribution curve with a lot of really low effort questions, what you're going to want to do is dig into those customers who found it really easy to get help with your support team and start talking about how you can get documentation in there first so that people don't have to contact your support team. Again, the only reason that that graph would look like that is because they've already contacted support, so you want to avoid those ones in the first place. So strategy number 3 is ticket tagging, and new superpower. If your support team does this, you have so much data that you can splice so many different ways. It's amazing. So when tickets come in, we use 3 different buckets. We have how-to questions, and those are ones that are, well, how do I update my billing information? How do I set up a new filter? How do I, do the thing? We also have bugs, and those get obviously trucked off to engineering. And then we have feedback, and those go to the product team so that they can dig into what our customers are asking for feature-wise. And that's what it looks like in Kayako. You can just add tags. And you can make some of these tags mandatory before the ticket closes, so that you'll have really great data. Or if you have lots of tickets and your support team doesn't want to do that, what you can do is get an export of 200 tickets for a month and then go through and really quickly tag all of them so that you've got these buckets. Then once you've got this data tagged, you can create these really interesting graphs that show where your support team's time is actually going. You don't want your support team to be spending their time answering how-tos. How-tos should either be visible from the product, so easy to use your product, or they should be documentation-based, so people working on your user guide. You can dig in even farther by tagging based on section of your product. We have made it so that our tags on tickets are the same as our documentation categories. So then when we dig into our traffic stats per category, we can compare that with the number of tickets per category and basically we're comparing apples to apples. So we know exactly what documentation has a higher self-service ratio compared to the other ones. So, and again, you can splice that data however you like. In the support team, we often look at bad satisfaction ratings, so people who have rated the experience as bad, and we dig into whether they're how-to feedback or feature requests. And we also dig into what area of the product has a lower satisfaction rating when they're talking to our support team, so that we can really target what we need to work on. And then number 4 is qualitative data. So this is an interesting one that we've done before, where you're asking the customer directly if they know that you have a support center, if they know that you have documentation. We found that a lot of people were just skipping straight over our help center and not even realizing that we had recently updated it, we hadn't created it. So they weren't even looking there first, they were just going right to the phone. And so you ask, did you know we had a support center? And if they say yes, well, did you look there before contacting us? And then if yes, why did you end up calling? Was it either because we didn't have the article you needed, you didn't understand it, or it wasn't applicable to this exact situation? And then you can start figuring out what areas of the product you need to look at, or what areas of the documentation you can look at. And it's not really sustainable to do forever, but we've done it over like a 2-week period, and then getting enough data so that the docs team can go in and make some changes based on this feedback. Or you can integrate it into your product. This is a screenshot from Kayako. Every user we track, once they're logged into their help desk, we track what they're searching for and what they've created their tickets for. So you can see, I don't know how blurry this is, almost, oh, it's not bad actually. But you can see Flores, right, it reads from the bottom up, so he searched for integrate with pipe drive. And then obviously he couldn't find it, so he created a ticket right away. So right away I know that my documentation team needs to talk about integrations more. We don't actually integrate with pipe drive, so that one might not be something we can solve with documentation, but it's good to know that he searched for it first. And then Flores searched for contributor. He searched for contributor again, and nothing came up. And then he searched for collaborator, which is the term that we actually use to call basically third parties. You can invite third-party agents into your help desk with Kayako and call them collaborators, but he thought they were called contributors, and he viewed the article and then didn't create a ticket. So you're starting to see how your customers are using the help center. And right away, a takeaway from that would be that we need to use a new keyword for a collaborator article for a contributor. And it's very qualitative and it's very one-off, but it is interesting to see how people are moving through your help center. And then finally, you can see at the top that he's replied to some tickets as well. So you can really trace their steps to the help center. So using support data on top of documentation data, that should say, lets you prove ROI and prove a return on investment. So how much are you saving a business with an article that you put up last week? How much does a better article contribute to your bottom line as a business? People really like seeing numbers. So this is one way that you can actually put a figure to the work that you're doing. Cost per contact is a support metric. Your support manager probably will be able to calculate it for you. It's basically the labor cost divided by the number of tickets that you have, and you can do it per channel as well. So for example, if it's $2 per contact, which is pretty reasonable, and you get 10,000 contacts per month, and your goal as a technical writer is to decrease or deflect 10% of their support tickets, you're starting to be able to do math and say, look, I decreased it by this much because I put up these articles that now have this many more views. Look at what I'm helping our support team do. And it's a worthy goal for support to work with you as well with. So now that you have some numbers and you want to work with the support team to accomplish those, what's next? You need to work with your support team. Unfortunately, that's the only way to get around that. A few ways that we've worked together with our technical writer is working on some tools that our support team can use to write the docs themselves. All of our support team have 20% time, which is taken from the Google 20%, and that allows them 20% of time away from the queue, from talking to customers, to work on their own projects. And about a quarter of our support team has picked self-service or knowledge-based writing as their 20% time. So they spend a lot of time with Kelly coming up with new topics and going through edits with her and improving the guides that we already have. And so one of the things that was really helpful to get that started was the self-service style guide. And you can see it's on our wiki, it's in Confluence. You can search it if you're not sure if we use bullets for different checklists, or if we use numbers or spaces after periods, or any decision that we've made about style is all in there so that they can help themselves. And one of my favorite things that I had trouble with all through university was writing in the active voice. And so I don't know if anyone's ever heard this trick, but you can add by zombies to the end of a passive sentence. So if you can add reports can be run by zombies, it's passive. And if you can't add by zombies and have it make sense, then it's an active voice. So that was the one really good trick that I've learned from the style guide, and it's helped improve my own writing as well. Another tool that we have is a workflow tool for editing existing docs. Is a workflow tool for editing existing docs. This is just a spreadsheet. It fills a gap in our tool set where you can see the article title, you can see whether we need to create it or whether it's one that's being updated, you can see whether people are existing writers on it, and then who took the article under adoption, I guess. And those are people from our support team, and we can also track how long they've been editing it, so maybe if they need to put it back into the pile and stop licking the cookie, another person can take it off their plate. And then finally, the last tool that Kelly's created for us is a user guide article template. So each different type of documentation has its own template in draft format. All we need to do is copy it. It has steps on how we actually format our documentation, so you can just start getting plugged in right away rather than worrying about format. And that has really sped up the new article creation. This is kind of what we look like when we work. We're fluffy and cute. But one of the biggest challenges, does anyone do support on a day-to-day basis? No, you do, yes. Oh, there's not very many of you. Okay, my challenge to all of you is to spend a couple hours a week in support. I know that it's a big stretch if you don't necessarily work on all areas of the product, or maybe you aren't familiar with where bugs are or what users are asking. We actually made it really simple. Instead of having to do support, we just do pair support with everyone in our company. So they sign up, we've just got a little schedule, they can pick 2 hours, and then they go and sit with support. And most of us are remote, so they'll actually sit with support on Google Hangouts. But we'll answer tickets, we'll do chats, and talk through what the thought process is, and you actually get to see what users are writing in about. Because if your documentation is being used to help those users, you should know what they talk to your company about. And it also will make you a lot more empathetic towards your users' needs. The first time you see a user yelling at support over chat changes your life. They're angry, and your support team deals with it every single day. Regardless of how good your product is, somebody will yell at your support team because they've had a bad day. So I highly recommend even just sitting with support for a couple hours, whether or not that's you answering tickets. I mean, you guys know the product better than anyone, so you probably can answer some tickets. But it really does change the perspective of your users once you've done support for a couple hours. And then I like this picture so much I stole it. All of the legs. But share the same goals. So what really stuck with me from Paul's talk was that in a Scrum, you're all pushing the same way, but you all have your own individual roles. And just like a Scrum in rugby, the same thing happens with technical writing and support. We're all pushing the same way. We're all getting the team to do the same thing. So even though we go at it about different ways, having that same goal set, whether that's decreasing support tickets by 10%, whether that's increasing feature adoption, whether that's just restructuring your doc guide in general, try and have the same goal, and then you can all work together. And that's me. I knew I would finish ahead of time. I talk too fast. But if you ever want to talk to me, that's my email address, or at support@content.com. Like was mentioned earlier, I'm now a freelancer, so if you have content you need written, hey. And I'd love to talk to you guys afterwards. I'm just going to be out in the hall across the room. So thank you so much. And